Uncovering Hidden Worlds, a 14-year-old's journey through the lens of his fam. In a sunny day in April when 14-year-old Max stumbled upon an old, mysterious-looking camera hidden away in his grandfather's attic. As he picked it up, he couldn't help but feel an odd connection to it, like it was calling out to him. His grandfather, noticing Max's interest, cleared his throat and said with a hint of excitement, "Ah, you've found the family heirloom. That camera was used by my father, your great-grandfather, back in the 1920s. Intrigued, Max asked his grandfather to tell him more about it. As they sat down together, his grandfather began to explain how his father had been a part of an underground art movement known as the Tunnel Visionaries. According to his grandfather, this group of artists had used their photographs and other forms of creative expression to explore the world's tunnels and underground spaces. Max couldn't believe what he was hearing. Tunnels. Underground spaces. It sounded like something out of a fantasy novel. But as his grandfather started showing him some old black and white prints, Max realized that this wasn't just some wild imagination. The Tunnel Visionaries were real, and their art was like nothing he had ever seen before. Over the next few weeks, Max spent every spare moment with his grandfather, learning about the history of the Tunnel Visionaries. He discovered that they had emerged in the 1920s, a time when the world above ground was changing at an incredible pace. Cities were growing, technology was advancing, and people were becoming increasingly disconnected from nature. These artists saw this disconnection as a problem and decided to take matters into their own hands, or rather, cameras. They began exploring the tunnels and underground spaces that crisscrossed cities, using photography and other forms of art to capture the beauty and mystery of these hidden worlds. Max was amazed by what he was learning. He had always thought of art as something that existed solely on walls and canvases. But the Tunnel Visionaries showed him that it could be found anywhere, even in the darkest, most abandoned places. One day, his grandfather handed Max a small notebook, filled with notes and sketches from his own time as a tunnel visionary. As he flipped through its pages, he came across a sketch of a tunnel entrance he recognized, the same one where he had first found the old camera. "Wait a minute," Max exclaimed. "This is the tunnel I found that camera in." His grandfather smiled knowingly and said, "Ah, yes, that's no coincidence, kiddo. You see, we tunnel visionaries believe that art can be found anywhere, even the places where people least expect it." Max decided to take his grandfather's notebook and go on a mission of his own to explore the city's tunnels and underground spaces, just like the original Tunnel Visionaries. With the help of some friends from school, they set out one day after school, armed with cameras and a sense of adventure. As they made their way through the winding tunnels, Max couldn't believe how different this world was compared to the one above ground. The air was thick with dust, and the only light came from tiny openings in the walls or their own flashlights. But despite the initial awkwardness of navigating these narrow passages, Max felt a sense of freedom that he had never experienced before. They spent hours exploring, taking photos and sketching what they saw, and as the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the tunnels, Max realized that this was exactly where he wanted to be, in the midst of something unique and special, surrounded by friends who shared his passion for art and adventure. When they finally emerged from the tunnel system back into the bright sunlight, Max felt invigorated. He knew that he had discovered something truly remarkable, a world hidden beneath their feet, waiting to be explored and celebrated through art. As they made their way home, tired but exhilarated, Max turned to his grandfather with a huge grin on his face. "Thanks for showing me the Tunnel Visionaries world," he said, his eyes shining with excitement. "I'm hooked." His grandfather smiled back at him, proud of the connection that had been passed down through generations. "Welcome to the club, kiddo," he said with a chuckle. "Now it's your turn to capture the beauty of these hidden worlds and share them with the world above ground." As Max walked away from his grandfather's house, he knew that this was just the beginning of his journey as a tunnel visionary. He felt a sense of purpose and belonging to something much bigger than himself. Max's eyes scanned the cityscape before him, his mind already racing with ideas for his next adventure. He felt like he could see the hidden worlds all around him, in every alleyway, every abandoned building, and every underground passage. With his grandfather's notebook tucked away safely in his backpack, Max knew that he was ready to take on whatever lay ahead. He took a deep breath, feeling the excitement and thrill of discovery coursing through his veins. The world above ground would never be seen in the same way again. Not now that Max had caught the tunnel visionary bug. Max's journey as a tunnel visionary had just begun, and he couldn't wait to see where it would take him next.
Thank you for watching. Thanks for watching my short story.